We got a quorum, so I'm gonna call call us back to order from recess. S-Bar. Cinco de Mayo. All right, so we're on to item number 9, aren't we?
No, 8.
Why can't I get that right? I just can't wait to be done. All right, Heidi, are you with us? You got.
I'm here.
Okay, here we are. So this is the Knight Family Trust, SF Single Family Dwelling and Pool. We're coming back from a review. So what are we doing here for preliminary and final? All right, get everybody sit up straight. We have an approval pending here potentially. So no real comments.
Yeah, that's right. Good afternoon. Heidi Jones, agent for the Knights. I'm here with Doug Giza, our architect, and Nakos with Common Ground Landscape Architecture. We were back in September to wrap up some concept comments, and the board really didn't have anything else for us. We are here today for preliminary approval only. We're not quite ready to jump into the construction level details that'll be needed for final. So all we're requesting is prelim for today. Doug can run through, as a reminder, the proposal, and some of the materials have evolved since your last review, and we're here for questions.
Do we have any
Doug,
board members? I don't think we have any. Everything landscape looks fine. Do we have any public comment on this item? So having heard none, I'm going to return back to the board. You have an opportunity for preliminary today. Does any member want to make a motion? Okay. Take your time. The applicant's only requesting a preliminary approval. So they'll have to bring it back on consent. So I have a motion.
Yeah. I'll make a motion for preliminary
Okay, as
with
submitted,
with final and consent.
final and consent as submitted. Any seconds? Haley? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Have a nice day.
thank you. I like being here after lunch. Have a good day.
Yes. I'm drunk on Pozole. That's good. All right, item number 9. We have the PAD climbing gym. Jay Ritterback, agent for the applicant. This is a fitting item. We have this on the slate for further conceptual. Jay, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Welcome. Let's start with anything that may have changed, and then if there aren't any significant changes, why don't you just lead us through a presentation through the comments?
Sure. So we have addressed each one of the S-Bar's comments to hopefully satisfaction. I'll hit each one. The second one was to study to better integrate the height increase into the architecture of the shopping center. Consider breaking up the 2 sections and using reglets and treatment of finish on the exterior walls. So we looked at the parapet and its coping, the building materials and colors of the whole shopping center. And we made some edits to make sure that we are integrating those. We reduced the number of arched windows. We enlarged them. And that was also to incorporate it into kind of a larger scheme. If you look on the Ralph's building, they have some larger archways that we think this ties in much better to it. The reglets and flashing at the corners, I believe it was in the front elevation that I believe Mr. Peugeot had pointed out, just kind of didn't make sense. So we addressed that so that those tie into the existing adjacent roof edges. The second comment, to study the fenestration. Again, the windows appeared unrelated and out of scale. So again, reducing that number and enlarging them to better fit that Ralph's building number one's appearance. Another comment, elevation of addition should stand on its own architecturally next to adjacent structures. However, architectural elements of adjacent structures should be considered and treated appropriately. So again, this is kind of carrying down, again, we looked at a lot of those adjacent elements, integrated them into the facade, the front elevation as appropriate. Ties into that, the next comment of the wood trellis along the western edge. It's appreciated, but integrate that wood trellis along the entire elevation. We did exactly that. So now the entire front elevation incorporates that wood trellis, improving its look and kind of makes it a cohesive elevation. The next comment was to consider using the same paint color as the Ralph's building. We've done just that. So we will be mirroring that. And then the next comment is study ways to integrate plantings such as finger planters to break down the apparent height of the building, add landscaping elements that soften the first story ground entrance. So we've added palm trees and finger planters along that entire front elevation that softens it down to that pedestrian scale that is always welcome. We've also included a number of bike racks, which further make the project much more compliant with the county's land use and transportation policies that really encourage the use and promoting bikes. And then they asked to return with conceptual sign plans. So the new elevations, you'll see that we have that conceptual signage added, but we understand that there's a separate permit path and approval process that staff reviews that against the Magnolia Shopping Center's overall sign plan. So these are just conceptual, but they probably will be pretty close to what we'll be resubmitting. So that should address those specific comments. This project, we're asking for positive comments at this conceptual level that would assist planning staff make the required findings and CEQA analysis that they need for the conditional use permit that goes to the Planning Commission for their consideration. If the Planning Commission approves that CUP, we'll return to the full SBAR for preliminary final. We'll have full workups of colors, materials, landscaping, and as well as all necessary site sections and details that's obviously required at that level. So we have the project or the business owner, Yishai, is in the audience, and we also have our architect, Andrew Goodwin, who would be on the call as well to answer any specific details that the BAR members may have. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Do you have any questions from board members before we proceed?
I do.
Mr. Peugeot.
Yeah, that, and this, they cannot see the. What are those drawings? They are like, is that like a plastic reveal or is the windows? What are that?
So the question is the rectangular elements above the logo on the main forward part of the second story. What are those reveals or actual windows?
I believe those are just relief. I'll let Andrew, those mimic on the Ralph's building number one. I believe those are just recessed.
So can you take us to image 44 on page 3, Jonathan? And direct your eye to the facade on the left side of the screen. There it is. So zoom in there, please. And we see that. So I believe that's what they're doing. What they're saying. Any other questions?
These things right here. Let's see.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to open up public comment. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this? Really? Okay. Nobody online? Oh, we do. Okay. Who do we have?
Mr. Andrew Goodwin, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you want to speak on public comment?
That's the architect.
Oh, okay.
He probably does want to speak at some point, but. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any letters from the public and we don't have any commenters today, so I'm gonna close public comment. Bring it back to the board. So let's do this again since we have another long list. Board support, I'm gonna just start with the items and kind of figure out where we're at, and then I'll have you guys make some comments and we'll figure out where we're going next. So. Board supports the concept of increasing the building height. I don't think that's changed. B, study ways to better integrate the height, increase the architecture of the shopping center. Consider breaking up the height in 2 sections. Study use of riglets and treatment of finished exterior walls. So where are we at with that, folks?
Well,
Want to update that? Looks like they're making the attempt, but what do we say?
Well,
You have to do better than that, Alex.
no, I'd like to make comments rather than, I mean,
So we're gonna come back to that. Fenestration and windows, I think we're gonna come back to that. Elevation of addition should stand on its own architecturally, we'll come back to that. Wood trellis, that hasn't changed since the last time?
I think they're running across the building.
Yeah, so that was so that's satisfactory.
I think so.
Okay, consider using the same paint color, that seems to be done. Study ways to integrate the planning fingers, that's what I was trying to figure out where that.
Is there a site plan that shows the planning fingers? I see
Yeah.
them in the elevation
So it's
perspective.
asking to see those.
Oh,
It's
like number 41 kind of has it, but not.
You don't have that in plan though, do you? So is that in the rendering? Is that where that's shown?
Is it? What's the name?
Jay? Mr. Ritterback.
Mr. Ritterback, is there a sheet that shows the planting fingers in plan view?
I believe, well, I will let Andrew speak directly to where that may be. I know they are shown on, this is sheet G 0.1. Shows a bit of the landscaping on 42, but it doesn't call out the specific planter boxes. The other ones are just the renderings that show where they would be located along the front. So that's sheet G 0.2.
If you go, sorry, this is Andrew Goodwin. If you go to sheet A 2.11, 2.11, it is number 7, page 7 in this. On 44, you will see called out there the curb planters and also the planting spaces in front of the building, as well as the bike rack that we're trying to include. So that this floor plan includes a little bit of the site improvements that we're doing because we're not changing the parking lot. So
Yep.
we showed it
That's good. Yeah, I just couldn't find which sheet it was on. That's
Okay,
good.
we see that. All right, well, let's get into comments. I think that gives kind of a sense where we're at. So John, why don't you start us off? Yeah, John, go ahead.
Okay,
Mr. Bird.
I still think that these sequence of 3 windows is not working for you. I would suggest you study one large window, maybe 18 feet wide. And it could have an awning over it to match the slope of the adjacent roof and color of the roof too. I mean, that's a thought. I think that at least it would look, well, anyway, I think it would look more appropriate to the design. I think the 3 oval windows still have a sense of being arbitrary.
Okay, very good.
That'd be my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Peugeot.
Yeah, I agree with that comment. See, the drawing shows the riglets very, very strongly marked, and in reality, they're not going to be seen like such a strong lines. But there is a break in elevation on grid line B that will help. But I think basically I would call them Palladian windows. They have the round top and they have a proportion from the the Renaissance. They just don't fit this building. It seems like square windows will work so much better here. Yeah. And also the idea of the cornice is good, like where that regulate the first. Let me point here. Where the first regular. Here we go. The first regular is, if you can make that like an entablature, like this face protrudes like maybe an inch or two. So all of this is one element, or you break, better yet, you break it and have one element and then something else. But integrating the cornice with the next line right here, and it would be more of a neoclassical detailing. And it could be a different color. You can start working on that. The recess squares, if you could tile inside to make them pop out or create some kind of interest in there, and perhaps like John said, one window, or in any case, some kind of rectangular windows. The arch top seems so arbitrary, and it's a very pretentious type of statement. A window like this on a building that is really, more, more basic. So I think it's getting better, but still needs to go an extra step. The use of colors too would be advisable. You could break it down in different type of colors. I think like a band. I think like integrating this band with the crown molding might work for you. Perhaps also sometimes what they do is a big wainscot to break it into more manageable pieces. Those are some ideas. I don't want to follow them directly, but just some ways to some interest to produce facade.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. Frosher.
Yeah, I'm in agreement about the arch windows just not achieving what you want here. And I know we had asked if you could moderate the heights between the two forms. I don't know if there's any ability to do that, but maybe you can do it through paint and different, like that entablature across the top, do it on one part, but not the other. And I also think you could pull up a different paint color, say even on the right-hand piece up to the windows, do a different color that sort of breaks the horizontality of the entire building, and do it through paint colors. So, yeah, it's getting better, but could still use more effort.
All right, Ms. Grubb.
I think I agree about the window, but I also think at the concept level, I think they need some positive comments probably to just get to the next level of review break. And so I would say, seems like they addressed many of the comments and some of the detailing just needs to be touched on, right? So that they can move to the next stage. They addressed the landscape comments, and I think the use of the red light space is aspect, and that is.
All right, Ms. Roach.
Yeah, I agree with Kaylee. I think they should be able to move forward, and the addition of a landscape is helpful. Also, I think in your renderings, a building that was kind of stark look to it because it's all white, and maybe if the trellis was painted a different color or you introduce another color, it might kind of break it up a little bit. So suggest that as a potential improvement.
Question for the applicant. What is the finish of the wood trellis?
The intent is that it would be the same as the existing center. It's a wood material. In the rendering, it shows it as painted, but it could easily be the same color as what was in the original, which is just a brownish wood color.
So we call that Mission Brown.
Mission brown, yeah.
Seems to be the usual. All right, my last comment would be in support of changing these Palladian style windows, if it's fair, let's call them that, but, and I'd like to see them square. Can we go back to that elevation you had up there, man? I think there was a couple of comments about differentiating the volumes in terms of their rhythm and there we go, that's fine. So I think okay. So this regulated at the top, or if the applicant goes the direction that Alex is suggesting, might unify that color wise or pop it out, give it some more detail. I think that's a good idea to kind of this volume. I would take this regulate here and I would adjust it to conform to a square window. I would avoid doing a rectangle / square, just it should either be a rectangle or a square, but I think these windows can maintain their same size and maybe be squared off, and then you could change your regular pattern and maybe bring that regular line down a bit and break it away from this more prominent piece and just kind of let this facade drop back and be a little bit quiet with the square windows. I think you're probably there. So in terms of moving this forward with the planning process, I think the board's probably in a good position at this point to allow that to happen. I don't think we need to see it again until after that process, and we'll look forward to returning to this discussion after that next step. With that, I suppose we could have this brought on the agenda for preliminary in our next meeting. It'll be full board. Well, we asked to see that. I don't think it's not, planning staff's not gonna look at anything from us on that, but Joe, is there anything that you'd like from us particularly to help planning staff move this forward on their end?
Mr. Chair, I think in terms of the land use entitlement, they're requesting a conditional use permit. And so they're not asking for anything unique. So as long as the comments that you provided are supportive overall of the height increase and the general architecture, I think that's appropriate. So what you're asking for is kind of fine details of the architectural details.
Okay, well, I think mass bulk and scale wise, they're fine. It's just adjusting the window and detailing elements. One quick thing I just noticed, if we go to page 3, please. Zoom in on the top left rendering. Just curious, to Alex and Valerie and John and others who made these comments about the hierarchy here. If there was going to be a change to the parapet, I would suggest to take this parapet and simplify it and just leave this one more exuberant. And I would just take this volume here with the big windows on it and simplify it as a nice rectified, like simplified cube with 3 nice punched openings in it. And let this one do the work. And if that includes dropping it down a couple inches to kind of let this piece, God, it's like, sorry guys, don't fail me now. Come on, there you go. This part of the cornice drop back over the top of that, probably be a nice improvement and actually maybe a savings in terms of just simplifying the complexity of the people. So I'm just curious that's going to not really get fully picked up in the comment. I just questioned the architect. Is that direction clear to you?
Yeah, I believe so. Though I can't see any marks if you were marking on the screen. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, if you follow Jonathan's mouse, what I'm saying is to let this cornice here drop back and then maybe drop this one down and simplify it and just go to a simple rectified box with the square windows. And I think creates a nice hierarchy and drops that volume back, and I think it would be appreciated.
The only question I have to that though is one of the comments that we got originally, I believe, was about creating some prominence of, the cornice feel, so it matches the Ralph's building. So what you're saying is that though you'll still have that where the pad climbing logo is, it's okay to bring it back down and not be as proud of a cornice element for the rest of it, and that would be fine by you guys.
Yeah, I think you've succeeded on that. And I actually think if you scroll down, Jonathan, and look at the image 44, it's kind of a partner to that, right? If you look at the image there.
Yeah.
So here it comes. You see the portion of this?
Yep.
It's kind of mimicking that in terms of its position and scale, and then everything behind it is dropped back and a little bit different. So
Yeah.
it seems consistent with that kind of.
Another suggestion, if you go back to the elevation, the elevation above. Elevation itself. Well, okay, that you can show the point of it. It's easier to see it in the flat elevation, but if you want to continue with these, it just seems like you need one more on each side and maybe more square rather than rectangular to be like part of a classical entablature. You're almost there. You see it more on the on 11, on the flat elevation. It makes more sense. And I would emphasize it's just having it, because you could put some color in there if you really want to show that. I mean, you can put tile and make it shiny, but also continue from. I think you need one more here and one more like there. Anyway, it's small. It's just a suggestion.
All right, okay, good. So we'll move on. We'll see you next time for preliminary. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
addressing
you.
comments.
Thanks, everyone.
Hold on. Step up to the podium. State your name. So we're opening up public comment here from a member of the public here. So state your name for the record and please address.
Hi, Yishai Horowitz with the Pad Climbing. Thank you for hearing
So
me.
you're the applicant?
I am,
Okay.
yes. Just a point of clarification.
So this is not public comment. This is
Okay.
From the applicant, sorry, for the record.
No worries. There were two comments about doing a single 18-foot wide kind of window. And then there were a few comments about just squaring.
I think
these
one board member
windows off.
thought maybe one window would work, but I think what majority of the board's asking you for is 3 square windows.
Okay, perfect. That's,
Rectified.
I just wanted some
No
clarification
more,
on that.
no more Roman arches. Okay?
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck. Can't wait to go climbing. All right. It's gonna be fun. All right, can we move on to 10? All right, go to new residence and guest house. Go to. We have Mr. Hirsch here. You do. There you are. I remember you now. Okay, good. So you've got a lot of comments here. Starting with the first one, nice project.
Can we stop there?
Yeah, sure. I doubt it. I doubt it. Won't spoil our fun. All right, so this is further conceptual and you're also here for preliminary, so you can get there. Let's see what happens. So if anything's changed, let us know. Anything significant, but otherwise, like the other applicants, would you just kind of use the list here to kind of make a presentation outline?
Sure. I think we've, hopefully you're still familiar with the project. It's a new ground up and we are essentially through the LUP process. We have preliminary fire, Summerlin fire approval. We have our EHS approved on-site wastewater treatment system, and we have our letter of intent from water. So, and I believe we have Joe on the line here.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
The architectural plans were not in the box folder yesterday. Did you get, there was only landscape, so we couldn't preview what was there. It's from Bosque.
That's
That's all there
unfortunate.
is.
It's in there now.
What's in there?
No, I don't.
What is in there now?
I didn't see like we didn't see any plans that had like elevations and
Okay, uploaded on Monday. Those are just the landscape drawings.
yeah,
Uh,
you just uploaded this Monday.
the Monday, yeah, that's when it was due.
Well, it doesn't really matter when it happened. What matters is what's in there now.
Right,
So what's
but-
in there now is either complete or incomplete. So which is it? 'Cause if it's incomplete, we don't want to waste any more time here.
I have,
If we don't have your plans, we're not gonna be able to do this.
Joe, can you chime in there?
Yeah, so whatever's in the box folder is what was provided. So so I'm not sure.
Well, the
Johnny,
plans
if you-
are there now, so I'm looking at elevations and full documents, so.
No. w-
Yeah, item 10, their color elevation.
Are the A sheets in there
Why don't you?
and the
scroll-
civil sheets?
Look through the set. Might want to download it. All right, hold on a second. Not open this in other form. Yeah, keep scrolling through there, Jonathan, while we're waiting here.
There's these architectural renderings, but I think they're in the parts of the landscape. Not that.
And there's no civil sheets either?
No, there's only Bosque title block on it.
Okay.
Okay, well, unfortunately, we're not gonna proceed with this if we don't have the correct documents.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's
There,
not gonna be
um,
productive for anybody.
Of course.
So, what? Well, they could if they can. So we've got two more items after this. So are the applicants for item 11 here? I know I have a public speaker who wants to speak on that. This is a Bernstein. So okay, so I'm gonna give you guys one brief pause here. We're gonna shuffle the order here. We're gonna hear item number 11. And then we're gonna come back, and if you guys have loaded your documents to the portal by then, we can review your project. Otherwise, we're gonna have to have you back on the next agenda, and we'll move on to item 12.
I'm going to ask for that. There's no way that I can accommodate that.
Okay, sorry. See you next time.
And staff supported their way to get on that next
Yeah, I
available
think you
agenda.
should contact your planner and see what you can do. Or talk to Jonathan offline. All right, we're gonna move on to item 1. So sorry. Item 11, request of Jamie Palencia for conceptual review of a new residence. Parcel is currently vacant. We have 2 members of the public here with us today that want to speak, and do we have anybody online that needs to speak on this today? Any letters from members of the public? We have a letter that's just submitted. And do we have any planner memos? Okay. All right, so first to the applicant, go ahead and state your name for the record and give us a brief presentation on where the project's located and the disposition of the site, and followed by a brief presentation of the project. Thanks. Go ahead.
My name is Jamie Palencia. I'm with Soul Workshop.
I'm Giorgio Jaretta, the owner, one of the owners.
The project is located on Mission Park Drive. You want to hear the typing for the should be right there. The city. It's a clear lot. There's nothing there now.
What neighborhood is this? Okay,
It's probably Mission Canyon. It's sort of the very end of Mission Canyon.
it's a flat site,
Yeah, it's a flat
Okay.
site.
not hillside. All right.
Right.
Let's get after it.
Okay. So I'm excited to finally present this project. The site has very unique features, one of which are these 4 mature oak trees that are along the south side of the property. If you can go up just a little bit to the side line, just below. Yeah, just go up a little bit. So right along the bottom of this property, the side of the property, are 4 mature oak trees. If you go to the photograph, we'll go to the top left photograph. Yeah, so that northwest property, so this is looking back towards the property from the northwest. You can see those 4 large mature oak trees. This is approximately the center on the very north side of the property, looking back towards the property. You can see sort of more than halfway across the property site, the oak trees stop. Can we scroll up a little bit? Get that next shot. So this is in the corner looking back. We're still along the north side of the property, looking towards the south. And again, you can see the large oak trees across there. There are these smaller fruiting trees that are on the back of the property. And let's go to the shot from the street, the southwest view, looking north. You pull up just a tiny bit. Again, you can see the oak trees that sort of permeate all the way across. And just the last 2 down at the bottom, I think we'll just quickly look at those. This is from the southwest corner in the back, looking across. You can see that there are actually some buildings that are close to, these are 0 lot line, and then these are really close to that. And if we go to the left, just so we're on the south side of the property, we're looking north. There's an existing building there that's very close to the property line. And along the south side, there's actually a garage that's pretty much 0 lot line. And the neighbor across from there is just has a driveway between us and them. But you can see again the oak trees there. You go to the next sheet. So we go to the bottom site. There we go. So the first thing that we did was we had a discussion with the owners, and we decided what we wanted to do with these oak trees. And to their credit, from the beginning, we decided that we wanted to try to keep them and sort of nestle our building into the site. So we contacted Bill Spiewak. He gave us some parameters, and with a combination of proximity of the building to the property line, caissons and grade beams, we were able to keep the building away from the trees, and also to create something that we were happy with. So the home is 2,500 square feet. That includes the garage. There are 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. The lower level, if we zoom to the next page.
Before you do, can I ask a question? Are
Absolutely.
those circles the canopy, or are they the critical roots?
They are the canopy.
Thank you.
Yeah. And actually, when we go to the floor plan on the next sheet. So let's go to.
What are the inner circles?
So that's what I was just going to get to. So we, what Bill Spiewak was saying, this outer edge here is the canopy. We're allowed to go approximately 20% into that canopy area. And then in some areas, I guess we're going to get into it. We're actually floating the building with caissons. And like I said, grade beams along here. We're actually able to go beyond that because we're only touching the ground 8-foot increments with the caissons. So what we're showing here is this is the lower level. There's just a bedroom, living room, and kitchen and dining area. The back area is a pool. And in this area here, because we raised the level of the main floor, again, because of the roots and the caissons and everything that we, sort of created, we have this sort of outdoor deck area proposed there. And if we follow the stairs, that just takes us upstairs. Upstairs, there's only a master bedroom, a secondary bedroom. There's a deck off of the master bedroom that looks into the pool. And off of the bedroom upstairs, there's also a deck that is over the garage.
Let's get into the elevation.
So here are the elevations. This elevation here is the side elevation, but it's the front entrance elevation. This is the front entrance. This is the opposite side of that. There's the garage that I was talking about. The garage on the other side. We scroll down again. One thing that I want to really point out here and sort of emphasize, from the street, all you really see is this much, which is the width of the garage. It's approximately 22 feet in width. This part of the building, because obviously it's an elevation, is more than halfway back from the property line. We did our best to, try to make the building as inconspicuous as we can from the street. This is the rear of the elevation coming out of the garage. I'm sorry, the kitchen into the pool area in the back. Let's go up from here. Just want to show this the section of the building. And one thing that I really want to emphasize and show that we really, did our work on this project is, if you look at the lower level, from this level to the plate height of the lower level, it's 9.5 feet. Actually, it's actually 9 feet 4 inches. And the plate height of the second floor is only 8 feet. We're vaulting it so we get the height that we want. Again, we're trying to minimize as much we can the impact of this building. I think what we're most proud of this project is that we intentionally, from the very beginning, wanted the home to feel like it was nestled into the site and that the trees sort of naturally grew around our building. Our square feet is modest, our plate height is modest, and we think that the style fits nicely into the neighborhood.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from the board? All right, I'm going to open up public comment. We have Ms. Bernstein that's been waiting patiently this afternoon. Please come up and state your name for the record. I'll give you 3 minutes to speak.
Nancy Bertelson. I live at 762 Mission Park Drive. 736 Mission Park Drive was originally a side yard of 740 Mission Park Drive with 2 little parcels in back, like 20 by 30 or 15 by 20. And the property profile said it was a lovely property, shouldn't be broken up. But it's a very narrow lot with no more than 50 feet wide. The houses at 740 Mission Park Drive and the house on the other side of 736 Mission Park Drive are right on the property line of 736 Mission Park Drive. Therefore, the proposed house of 2,952 square feet is way oversized for this lot. The side yard setbacks must be at least 10 feet. Being a 2-story will have an adverse impact on the light to the adjacent properties. Now, second, a huge issue is this project must have the required 2 off-street parking places. Our private road of Mission Park Drive is 22 feet wide at this spot. At the upper end, it's as narrow as 11 feet, and we like it that way. We don't want the road widened. We want to keep the charm of the neighborhood and road. However, it is vital that our residents are considerate and keep our road free of permanent residential vehicles. Unfortunately, for years, 740 Mission Park Drive dug 5 feet out into the existing old narrow road, planting a huge bush 12 feet wide up to 15 feet high with 2 huge boulders behind it and propped up with long iron pipes pushing against it. There has This has caused 3 little accidents from the 2 residents across the road trying to avoid the bush while they back out of their driveway. There have also been incidents where a small car can't get by because of this blockage by 740 Mission Park Drive. And in addition to the digging out into the road, 740 Mission Park Drive parks his van 3 feet more. So not only does it narrow the road to 17 feet, it narrows it to 14 or 13 feet. And no way can 2 cars pass each other. We know that, we're all considerate, and one will back up and the other will go through. But if a worker, which has happened several times, parks across the street and 740 is not there, then 740 comes in and he's blocked right opposite the worker's car. No way can a little car get through. That is totally inconsiderate, and he knows better. So this is a real problem. And as I said, we don't want the road widened. We have a charming neighborhood, but it's come to the point where something has to be done because this is traffic danger. And this project is huge for this lot. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, talked a lot about the transportation just before you step off. What do you think of the architectural style?
I think it's huge, and that we all have individual houses that were built a long time ago and they have individual styles. And there's a few 2 stories, but they're modest in comparison. One's Pennsylvania Dutch, another one is stucco with a kind of a tapered roof, and everybody's a few newer houses, but this is overwhelming, and I'm really shocked to see the plans.
Yeah. Right.
And again, the parking, we cannot have this continue because next time we get it evacuated, we have to be able to get out.
Very good. Thank you for coming and speaking today.
Okay. Oh, and I urge you all to make a site visit and you can see what the problem is at 740 Mission Park Drive.
We have to move on, but I think
Everybody on Glenda's and Mission Park Drive wants that corrected.
excellent. I intend to propose a site visit. Okay, Mr. I can't read the last name, but the first name's Michael Guten. All right, well, Mr. Guten, please address the board. State your name for the record, and again, 3 minutes of speaking time.
Yes. My name is Michael Guten, and I am the owner and the resident at 740 Mission Park Drive. I'm here today to express my concern as a neighbor regarding the project that we're talking about today. The size of these new buildings are much too large for this tiny, narrow lot, and they are out of character with this older established rural neighborhood, which contains proportionately sized houses on larger lots that do not so radically and negatively affect immediate neighbors' views and privacy. The new buildings dwarf the much smaller 1-story adjacent houses located to the immediate north and south. The walls of the tall new buildings would be located just 7 to 8 feet away from my house, blocking any views of nature and sky that I now enjoy. My single-story house was built in 1925 on an irregular shaped lot with a side setback of approximately only 2 to 3 feet. Consequently, these new 2-story buildings, which contain many windows located on the north side and a sitting veranda located over the garage, would destroy the privacy that I now have in my south side bedroom windows and in my backyard, which I have enjoyed for the past 33 years since moving into my house in 1990. The new 2-story buildings would block any southern sun exposure to my south side windows or to my entire backyard, and they would take away any views of trees and nature that I now enjoy. The lights from both the interior and exterior of the new buildings would be a terrible light pollution source, defeating the rural neighborhood nighttime darkness that I currently enjoy from my windows and from my backyard. The exterior lights on the north side of the new buildings would shine directly into my bedroom windows. The proposed pool equipment building would be located just yards away from my east side bedroom windows and just a few feet away from my backyard. Consequently, the noise of the pool equipment would create a noise nuisance and disrupt restful sleep and peaceful relaxation in my backyard. The proposed swimming pool would disturb and damage the root system of the large oak tree that grows on my property in the southeast corner of my backyard. In order for the board members to get a better visual concept of what a terrible negative impact this project would impose on the quality of life I now enjoy in my home, I have submitted for the record several photos showing the relative size of my small house, the relative location of my windows and my backyard, just how close my house is to the south side of the property line, and photos of a makeshift story pole, which illustrates the towering height over my house and backyard that the new buildings would be. Based on these photos, I believe that the board members will understand how incompatible this project is with the tiny narrow lot size and with the north and south side neighbors' houses, and what a visual obstruction these buildings would be to my home, and what a loss of privacy they would impose on me and to the enjoyment of my home. I'm almost done. I request that the County of Santa Barbara South Board of Architectural Review reject this project in its current proposed form and scope, and taking into consideration all the points that I've made above. At the very least, at this point in the review process, I request that story poles be erected at the site to demonstrate to you and to me just how negatively impactful this project would be to the quiet, private enjoyment of my home, which I have loved living in the past 33 years and which I would like to continue living in for many years to come without the tremendous negative impact that this project would impose. Two more things. Suggestions to mitigate my concerns.
Thank you.
Install story poles to be reviewed by the SBAR to illustrate how close and impactful these buildings would be to the quiet enjoyment of my residence and backyard. Move the buildings back away from the north side setback approximately 3 to 5 feet to allow some sunlight in and a partial view out of those bedroom south windows. Reduce the overall height of the building's height from 23 feet to 18 feet or less. Relocate the pool equipment building from the south side corner of the lot to the southwest corner of the lot to mitigate pool equipment noise. Almost done. Reduce the number of windows that look directly into my south side windows and backyard. Eliminate the exterior lights on the north side of the buildings. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Well done.
Appreciate
Thank you,
your
sir.
time.
Thank you for coming to speak today. Do we have any other members of the public that wish to speak today? And no letters, no one online. All right, cool. Thank you, sir.
I hope you'll look at the photos that I submitted.
We shall.
Thank you so much.
We're going to, if you have any documents or any photos that you want seen, you just come up and see Jonathan, the BAR secretary, and he'll take care of you. I'm going to move us forward and come back to the board for further questions. But before I do that, just to move us along here, I don't think this would be controversial, but we're going to most certainly be requiring story poles for this project. I'd also like the applicant to come back with site sections that cut through the short section of the site and include the profiles of the neighboring houses so we can assess these proximity issues and trees. And you really need to do that to the north and the south. There's one other thing I wanted to mention before we carry forward. Well, I'll try and remember it as we get into it. So let's get our comments together. I'm going to go from the left side of my left side to the right. So Mr. Richard, why don't you start us off with your comments?
I'm just trying to wrap my head around how this building is proposed to fit into the context of this neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
So
Actually, while you're thinking about it, reminds me, the other thing I'm going to request that you come back with in your next presentation is a survey of the neighborhood. However, I think there's several definitions of what that might be, but the general neighborhood, probably as defined by the private lane that are sharing this location. And I'd like to see that an analysis of the floor plans, first story and second story, as a comparison for compatibility. There's been some allegations that the house is well beyond what is the average. I see here you're proposing a 2,500 square foot house, so not too big, but it's a reasonable size, so I want to verify that. And I think a survey of the neighborhood is in order. Are you ready, Mr. Richards?
Yeah, so I agree that getting some more information about the neighborhood would be helpful. I just pulled it up on Google Earth and I could see there are a few second, two-story homes. Not right, right next door adjacent are both single-story homes, correct? But within this neighborhood, you can see there are two-story homes. And I think the context of this home is going into a constrained lot where the neighbors look to have their homes seem to be very tight up against the property lines. I don't know if their properties conform to the setback requirements, but herein lies a challenging situation to build a new home. Having more information about the relative heights of the neighbor's house against your proposed home would be helpful to get a better understanding of what are the impacts. I mean, the neighbors are describing here blocking light coming into their properties, which understandably could be a concern. I appreciate the approach you've taken by getting an arborist involved and understanding how this new home can fit in around the existing oak trees. I think it demonstrates that you're being sensitive to the site, which is very important in my opinion in a neighborhood like this. It's an ambitious scope to try to fit this house onto this lot. And I think you might need to sell it a little bit more to the board to be completely convinced of it. I think the styling of the home is appropriate. I think generally you're showing that you have, sensitivity to the neighborhood, but I think you need to come in with at least a preliminary landscape plan that would help to explain how this house fits into the context of the other landscapes around this area. A little concerned with how the swimming pool fits into the backyard, and your neighbor is making a comment that they're concerned about an oak tree being impacted. So I think that needs to be addressed. And has the arborist looked at the potential impacts of the neighbor's oak? But did he study the neighbor's oak tree or just the oak trees on yours?
So if you look at, if I can respond, if you look at our plan, we show
Well, the question specifically is Bill Spiewak's report.
Bill has seen
Bill has seen. Hold on, has his report included the tree that's not on your property of question?
We have not written a report yet. We wanted to go talk to you before we.
So you're working based on a kind of a design guideline from Bill that's basically a generic.
Right.
And that addresses the neighbor's tree as well.
We talked about the neighbor's tree.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
well, I
Okay.
appreciate that. I think you're showing that you're being sensitive to the site. Which is appropriate for this area. To me, the home seems like it might be a little bit oversized for the neighborhood, but I think there needs to be more information with the study of the neighborhood to really evaluate that. And I'm not going to make a generalized statement until that information is brought to the board. And I agree that it'd be great to see story poles on the site and be able to evaluate it relative to what the neighboring structures are. It's really challenging to look at your plans here and have an understanding of what the neighbors' homes are. And so even a simple 3D model of showing the massing of your home relative to your neighbor's house, I think might help inform us and also show where the oak trees are around your building. I think your drawings are beautiful.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Grubb.
Yeah, I agree with what Robert said. My request was maybe to do a massive study with neighbors.
On a landscape plan, guys. I'd like to see one of those.
Yes.
Okay, you too? Okay, all right. Anything else? Ms. Foster.
Yeah, this is a very constrained site. I've driven in this neighborhood and I know how big those oak trees are and how an important part of the property they are. So it makes total sense that you're working with them. But what it's doing is pushing your house against the north property line. And I think I too, I like your design in general, but we need more information about scale and scope in the neighborhood. And I think for sure, there are too many windows on the north side of the building because it's really important to try to protect neighbor privacy. And given that their house is really close to the property line and you're pretty close, I mean, in the city of Santa Barbara, there's solar ordinances that would completely push your building away from that north property line, especially in a two-story form. And although that's not an actual ordinance in the county, there's reasons for it because it blocks sun. So if there's any way that you can undulate that north side, and I know you're being totally pushed from the other side, so it's a huge challenge. But some kind of break in your mass and your wall along the north property line. And unfortunately too, roof decks, as fun as they are not popular with neighborhoods because you congregate up above, noise carries, they become challenging in neighborhoods. So I'm not sure where that's going to end up either, but and the pool equipment too probably needs to move away from the proximity of that neighbor into an area that's not as close to other buildings.
Very good. All
No, that's
right, Mr. Peugeot, thank you.
Yeah, it's a difficult process. I appreciate the applicant's work, really. It's the oaks on one side, the neighbors on the other. Narrow lots. It's really tough. Really, yeah. I like the drawings, very nicely done. Just, I wonder, it just seems like that second story is I wonder if you can not shift because of the element on the right and on the east. Instead of being where it is and go more towards the back. I don't know, I'm sure you looked at this and I think you have reason for why it's done like that way. It's just like there's so many things going on. It's tough. I see the point of the neighbor to the north. It will in the winter, it has the big shower. The oaks also has the shower, but this will shower more. I don't know what to say. I see a good design intent, a good style with nice drawings. So the constraints are huge. I don't think it's doable as a two-story project. At least that central part seems to be contentious. And it's not that big. It's just 2 bedrooms and back and staircase. I don't have any good ideas.
If you can even move part of the two-story that's all along the north over to the kitchen, even though that's a nice shape, but
All right, Mr.
to just get a break in that long north facade.
Well, I concur with those comments. It's a difficult site and it's a beautiful job. And perhaps you can try and study that, and I'm sure you already have. But this is the resistance that you hope wouldn't show up.
We knew.
And that's all I have to add.
No, I was gonna agree with you about resetting the setup of the second floor, but first, couple things. Look, never fails. People who can draw seem to be able to design very well, and there's plenty of evidence here that we're sitting with an excellent designer, and a creative individual who uses design thinking to solve design related problems. So you made a very good presentation about how you've mitigated and gone to some extent to mitigate the issue of the oak trees with your design. So you've kind of further demonstrated your ability as a designer and a critical thinker, and made a good case for it. So what I think, what you're hearing is now it's time to consider the neighbors. And we want you to use the same critical thinking and design skill you have to solve that problem, because I'm of the belief that any problem can get solved by good design. And somebody will build something here. And to the neighbors, let's hope that we get the best result from this particular application, because who knows what would happen if another person came along and another, somebody's going to build here. So let's do our job and try and figure out how to make something that works for the neighborhood. Having said that, and with the confidence I have in your design, having looked at the work you presented today, I'm going to emphasize that you need to get to the drawing board here and figure out how to accommodate the neighbors with the same amount of energy that you're accommodating with the oaks. And it makes me question whether or not one of the oaks may need to be sacrificed to do that. It seems obvious. And that's okay. That can happen. It's part of making concessions on design. So either that or maybe the second floor needs to be completely rethought. You have window issues onto the north side that create privacy issues. I would recommend as kind of a specific measure to consider shifting the program of the second floor and moving the living spaces and to the southern end of the volume and putting the circulation to the north and try to minimize any kind of privacy issues between properties. The other thing, the roof deck seems excessive and unnecessary. I don't really, it doesn't pose a second story problem, but it does pose a privacy problem, and I think it should be reconsidered. Look, in terms of the architectural character and style, it's a beautifully designed house. It's probably one of the best looking elevations I've seen in a while sitting up here on this board in terms of the way you've treated the playfulness of the windows and just the different moves you've made in the architecture. It's you clearly understand the style of architecture and it's very well executed, but I think the real issue here is neighborhood compatibility and accommodating a narrow lot size. One other comment I had specific to the architecture is on A20, that is the west elevation. He's got two French doors with arched glazing in the transom, and I believe you should reconsider that, especially the one on the southern side or the right side. It's encroaching on that rake detail, and it doesn't seem to be working well. You may want to jettison that type of transom and just let the door do its thing with the arch, which seems to give it some prominence, but I think it's pushing it to try and use those there. That's a very minor issue, but just the same, something I noticed. Also think the pool equipment, I don't have any real argument against anything I've heard here today from my board or from the neighbors. But I think there needs to be some mitigation of these issues. I don't see how we can continue unless there's some significant design work done to try and make some moves happen here. So architectural style seems fine. Your execution of it is exquisite. The massing and the privacy issues and compatibility with the neighborhood, I think, is an issue. In fact, I'm not too keen on the roof deck, but all things considered, if we can mitigate the neighbors' concerns, maybe we can make something like that work. I know just looking for open space to enjoy and getting direct sunlight is important. So we're going to require story poles. We're going to require you to survey the neighborhood. We're going to need to see some sections. We're not going to story pole this until we reviewed it again. I want this applicant to go back and restudy this and come back with some some solutions, and we're gonna review that again on further conceptual, and then we'll see where we are. When we feel like we've got something that is potentially worth reviewing, then we'll do the story polling and go out and review the site. Yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Bruno.
see, show outline of existing structures on the site plan. We need a bigger site plan that shows not just your property, but, you know.
Yeah, I think that's in
neighbors,
order.
Yeah.
So
So
include
that-
the north and south parcels and include outlines of the existing
Streets and so
structures.
forth, yeah.
But I want to see full sections through the short end of the site that cuts through those buildings so that we understand the relationship between the two. I mean, it is notable that, sorry, Mr. Cooten. Okay, Mr. Cooten's, comments. Take those into consideration. I was looking, the majority of the proximity between the two houses is a bit shifted. So, he's definitely right up against your balcony, but your second story is kind of to the east of his property, but it doesn't look like you have room to move out of the way. And that's a really tight corridor that's being created there. So anyway, good luck to you, but look, you're a good designer and you're obviously a good architect. So we're counting on you to actually solve problems of that ability.
Are we
you
gonna
have.
have, are we
Thank
gonna
you.
try to have a site visit before?
No, we're not. You need to go back to the drawing boards and think about what we're talking about, come back with some proposals, and then we'll see where we are.
You can do individual site visits.
Yeah, I
know
mean, if
Mission
anybody
Oaks
wants to
pretty
go
well,
by and
but
look at the
yeah.
property, most of us know this neighborhood pretty well, so I know where this house is.
And for story polls, we want to get to the next level before you go to that expense.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I encourage the neighborhood to get together on this and try and find common ground. We will decide for you if you can't decide amongst each other. And I promise you, you will all be unhappy if that's the case. So try and find some middle ground, stay in communication and work together as a community and use good design to solve problems. That's what design's all about. Next item.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to jump in really quick for the next item. So we had item number 10, the go-to project. So Mr. Hirsch had left, but I was able to track down the items that were missing from the box folder. So we can hear that item. So if he's there, we could take that item next, or we could trail it to the end.
Splendid. All right, you take your conversations out to the hallway, please, folks. We're gonna go to the next agenda item. Take that outside, please. We got to get on with our agenda here. All right, so we're coming back to item number 10. Looks like you found your drawings. Good luck. Good job. Let's
Thank you,
jump
Joe.
in and restart the conversation. So
Sure.
the board hasn't potentially had a full look at this, so let's make sure that let's just give everybody a moment here to settle down and figure out what we're looking at.
And Mr. Chair, while you're kind of getting set up and you're looking at the plans, there is a planner memo that I could walk the board through. Essentially, kind of the history with this one. When it was last heard, it was identified that this project is in the Hillside Ridgeline area, and so that there's a limitation in height, and so the current proposal exceeds that the Hillside Ridgeline height, as you can see on the screen, by 7 feet. So the LUDC does allow for the BAR to have discretion to not apply the standard 16-foot height limit. So your board would just have to make the findings that it would serve the interest of good design. So that's essentially what is being requested in this case with the height of the structure.
Okay, well, we'll see if the applicant has a good argument for us to consider on why we should do that. Hint, hint. All right, with that, has everybody had a chance to review what's being presented here? Jonathan, can you scroll us through the A sheets that have been added? So we're just gonna take a moment here. Let us kind of soak this in before you start your presentation so you get everybody's full attention. So Jonathan, can you just take us through those A sheets that have been added?
One question, has it changed since? the
When
last?
changed from,
Have you changed your design radically?
not radically,
Okay.
we did lower it a foot, so that 7 foot is now 6 foot.
Okay.
182 megabytes.
I don't know what you're looking at, Alex.
The preliminary.
I'm looking at 20 megabytes here. I don't know what is the go-to preliminary PDF? What is that? Oh, leave it to the landscape architects to drop 120 megabyte file and then it's a matter. Yeah, so all those leaves add up. All right, that one probably needs to be downloaded. So let's go to preliminary Gato. Go to.
Well, you had it up on in the last round. You had that landscape up.
Right, somehow it just got signed out of the box. On it. There we go. All right, so everybody see what they're expecting to see here. Are you able to look at the landscape plan, Scott? Okay.
Do you have a plan that shows the area of roof that exceeds the ridgeline ordinance?
In the elevations and that site section, that large site section that you just passed is the most extreme. Point. And we have many more sections in the landscape drawings, but
Okay, well, let's,
you tell me when to go.
So we're, still can't keep track of it. All right, so look, you've got.
Nice project.
You've got a couple of items here that we put you to, but why don't we start there? Why don't you make your argument about how and why your project exceeds the hillside design guidelines in terms of
Sure.
building envelope and what the rationale for that is. And then try and guide us to look at the exhibits you have to understand that.
Sure, I reviewed the design guidelines, the hillside and ridgeline guidelines, and found many points that that are salient, in my opinion. Residents have expressed concern over building heights and scale of new homes, which often obstruct or degrade ocean and mountain views from public roads, trails, and private homes. The way this project is situated is up against a sloping 10-acre site with nothing above it, or to the sides that this particular proposal obstructs views onto in terms of ridge lines and sites through the sight lines through the property. As Joe explained, you have the discretion to approve the exceeding of that height limitation if it encourages architectural designs and landscape, you know what that means. In certain circumstances, allowing greater flexibility in the guidelines will better serve the interests of good design without negatively affecting neighborhood compatibility or the surrounding view shed. As we reviewed this project 2 times previously, the board felt that the siting of the house was sensitive to the site. We are not building a 2-story gargantuan where the building envelope and development envelope was already predetermined for us during the lot line adjustment. So we were given that envelope within this 10-acre parcel, and we are nowhere near maxing out even the building envelope or the FAR or anything. What we did was instigated a balanced cut fill grading that nestled the project into that slope and created the parking and a little bit of accessory usages down below. And the main house is this single-story low slung house that wraps around that promontory. If I could now direct you to, let me see if there's anything else on that hillside. Okay, one of the exceptions that you're allowed to look at is it due to unusual circumstances. This isn't so unusual, but lot configuration and topography are listed as part of that unusual circumstances, the topography being that we have a building envelope that's on a slope, a development envelope that's on a slope. So if we just, you know, kind of just clear graded that thing, we'd have a kind of a normal house with a very high retaining wall in the back of it. And we would get that 16-foot height for the house, but we would have a fairly significant upslope retaining and fairly significant downslope retaining situation. So we're trying to be sensitive to that, to grading, as well as sight lines. So if I can direct you to that file that says new exhibits. Jonathan? Yeah. So this is a series of views onto the site. Those are, well, that's one view onto the site showing as you move up Toro Canyon, and there's one view on the highest part of what I'm going to show you, that where you would be able to see the house where there currently is no screening vegetation. So this is as is when you see the story poles illustrating the house. And the next sheet, this is showing the middle shot is showing the other view into the site that also doesn't have any new vegetation. You see the story poles. The rest of the site, you have there already are mature trees, and there is no sight lines to the house. But now if you go to the sheet A0.2 in the architectural set, we can go, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is just more showing that there are points along Toro Canyon where you can't see into the site. So those aren't really at issue, but you did wanted to see sight lines from Toro Canyon. So if you please go to A0.2. So this is the view key plan on the lower left shows where this vantage point is. It's the lowest part of, as you're coming up Toro Canyon, that you'd be able to see the site. You guys experienced this when we did a site visit, and that middle lower image shows the story pole view onto the site. And then the lower right shows the rendering of the house mapped onto where the story poles are illustrating. And the top one shows when the vegetation screening has been installed. I'll try to do my best architectural speak, landscape speak. I lost my cohort. But this is viewing with the new robust screening approach, utilizing 6 newly proposed X large filled dug olives to provide instant and dense screening from Toro Canyon, instead of relying on the existing olives to reach maturity. So we're basically replacing those little scraggly olives that were there. We'll move those somewhere else on the site, but we're proposing these larger specimens. And then next sheet shows the next, if you see the key plan, is the next point up Toro Canyon, which views onto the site in that middle lower view, showing the story poles, and then the rendering mapped onto where the story poles illustrate on the lower right, and then with the screening oaks on the upper illustration photo sim. And then next sheet, please. This is the third part, the point where the key plan shows the view onto the site from Toro Canyon. Lower left is that same view with the story poles. Lower right is that same view with the rendered house, and then the main image is with the new planting screening. If you go to next sheet, please. This is the key on the lower right, shows where this section is taken, and it's taken through that highest point that we saw on those photo sims, which is that corner of the roof. It's now at 22 feet. I lowered it a foot. But as you saw, and that's from natural grade, that green line is a natural grade. You could actually see from looking at this, although it's in a kind of obtuse cut through the house, that there's a balanced grade and I mean cut and fill to the approach.
Why didn't you draw the line of the boundary of the height limit as it's reflected from the natural grade so we could actually see?
The 16-foot?
Yeah. Like, shouldn't there be a 16-foot line following the grade line? So we can
Apologies.
understand how much of this visually, graphically, the best way to demonstrate that.
I'm sorry.
Did you do that anywhere?
Pardon me?
Is that done anywhere where we can actually see where the envelope
If
is?
you go to a 2.1,
Uh-huh. What sheet is that?
I didn't explicitly do that 16-foot line. I thought showing those views onto the site was really the point that we were looking at. But if you go to a 2.1, there may be an adjacent elevation that
We're gonna, one of our board members has
okay.
has a childcare issue she
It's
needs to
okay.
handle, so.
You're in support though, right? While you walked out? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, sorry, Josh, I do not have that indication, but I have other elevations that may be relative.
Okay, well, I think you've kind of covered the points in the comments, so let's bring it back to the question that I asked at the beginning. What is, in a summary kind of format, right? That means not long-winded, as concise as you can be. What's the argument to have this house exceeding the height limit? Like what is, it's a single-story property.
Mhm.
We have control of the site here. The new structure. We can grade, we can bench, we can lower the property, you know, the finished floor down.
That's
What, I mean,
again.
like one argument, I guess, could be, I'm gonna minimize grading and that's. the
That's
argument.
one.
Okay, so,
Two would be the view from finished floor to the ocean.
okay, well, that's not, you know, that's not a good reason.
Okay, so,
Like,
well,
you
I
still
would,
get a view from.
sure, but if I were to propose a house that has the written ability to exceed 16 feet by using a sloped roof, I have to argue that that's not in the benefit of good design. What you'd be looking on to from off the site is the roof. You know,
I think the argument to. Huh?
Can only exceed by 3 feet, not 7.
Yeah, you can't even, there's no finding we can make to give you an
It's-
approval for a 7-foot.
Well, it's at your discretion.
You know, our discretion's limited to 3 feet.
Mr. Chair, I can kind of weigh in here. So the board does have the discretion to allow an exception to the hillside ridgeline guidelines. And so then you would apply the standard height restriction for the zone district. So in this case, I think that's 25 feet.
Okay,
So that would be the board's ability here.
so the 25 feet is the limit.
Let's back up a little bit here, though,
Yeah,
because
hold on, I just want to make sure I understand what we're doing. That's what you're saying, Joe, is 25 feet is the limit for us?
Correct, for the BAR. That, I think the 3-foot allowance that you're referring to is the allowance for a greater roof pitch when you have pitches of roofs greater than 4 and 12.
Yeah.
And that's automatic. That doesn't require BAR approval. But this allowance by the BAR is specific to the BAR.
But what about the difference, Joe, between the urban and the rural? That's the whole problem that he's gotten into, is that this is considered rural ridgeline. And the limit on that is 16 feet or 19 feet. It's not 25 feet. And
Correct.
all the designers that slave over these ridgeline ordinances work within those restrictions. Because the upper areas of a place like Toro Canyon are considered rural, and that was the point of this Toro Canyon plan, was to eliminate big walls and two-story facades and story and a half facades, and to work with grading into the slope and stepping the buildings down and staying in that envelope of the 16-foot. So how can we, with parity, make this kind of exception when everybody else struggles to work within this?
Well, I think, yeah, and I think we're working with us. I think it's fair to say that we're going to work with a 16-foot unit as a basis for this evaluation. And I think there's precedents where we've had people or applicants present projects with some
Small.
yeah, percentages or, fractions of the elements of the house and shoot out of the 16 feet. And you're able to allow for that, find positives for it as it potentially mitigate things like grading. Like obviously reducing grading is a welcome addition to the design.
Right.
But I think that's where your balancing act is going to be. I think making an argument that your occupants want to have a better view, sorry, it's just not going to get you anywhere. Don't waste your time with that argument. I mean, obviously they want to get the best view possible. So
Everybody.
and we don't have any objection to that, but I don't think that's not going to be a precedent that we can use. So my other question is, if you want to get more elevation for the finished floor, why not move up the slope farther? And I suppose you're going to tell me there's some, I haven't really studied your site carefully, but does that put us into an ESH situation, or what is the limitation of moving the house up the slope further?
The building envelope and the development envelope each at that top point.
And the building envelope on that.
It's pushed up against that, yes.
Yeah, but that's basically an oak riparian habitat, or is it what is it?
It's a environmentally
sensitive habitat.
sensitive
Okay.
habitat.
So you're right up against that.
Correct.
So you're about as high up on the slope as you can be. So I think Val's point into the spirit and intent, you're gonna have to either drop the house down and create more grading, or come back and really demonstrate this. I mean, you haven't really, it's clear to me that you're not super clear about our purview over the review of this, because you haven't presented us anything that helps us encourage your argument. Like when I see people do graphically with these type of projects, and you're graphically inclined for sure, because I can see it in your documents, is they'll take a 3D model of the site and we'll map a duplicate of it and duplicate it up 16 feet. So you get an exact envelope, right? In 3 dimensions. And then you can actually create views of it and observe exactly what's protruding through it. And if it's just slivers and chunks, it's because you have an asymmetrical house, right? It's not as easy as just cutting sections. It changes as you move from one space to the other. But if we look at that, we can see exactly what's protruding from it. And I think this board would probably be willing to make some exception, because you do have a beautiful design and we like it and we want to see it succeed. Certain portions of it, I think, could be perceptually out of that envelope, but it's going to have to be portions, not like the entirety of the roof structure.
I think usually what we're used to seeing is like how much and how many square feet. It's like 300 feet square or 250 feet. protrudes so many feet up, like either with it. Sometimes you don't have to be so technical. You can have like 3 sections and show this piece protrudes, and that's your argument. Sorry.
Yeah, in terms of, and I would also add too, like, I actually like the way you've organized the house along the topography. That's the right way to do a house on a hillside, excuse me.
The argument also is like, well, maybe a bathroom doesn't have to be so tall, or a secondary space, or a pantry, or doesn't have to be that high. Maybe a certain portion of the house. You start negotiating and minimizing that infringement.
But I would look, given the positive aspects of the design, personally, I would be supportive of more grading if it actually solves the problem.
Okay, that was my question, yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
have to make a consent. Look, we're certainly not going to encourage you to move into the entire environmentally sensitive habitat. I don't want you to go further down the site. I want, I like the design of the house. As well as we do, is you can start to reduce the height of your roof, and you've already created undulation, and there's nobody on this board who thinks that anybody has to have 12 feet or 13 or 16-foot ceilings in a house. It's just, human beings. I think Frank Lloyd Wright made a pretty good case.
Yeah, he had some 7-footers.
You can actually make a pretty dope house with 8-foot ceilings. So, it's a different idea, but there's going to be room for that exuberance or that exaltation that you're looking for, with the roof flying up and really letting in that gorgeous view that you're looking for. But I think we really don't have what we need to even see that. And
Yeah.
you're pushing right up against the edge of our decision-making ability. So if you give us more information, I think we'll be more comfortable.
Well,
falling in line.
this is the whole bait and switch thing, right? I've pushed you up, and now I'll come back and you'll approve my 4-foot. I'm kidding. But,
Don't go there, man.
Yeah. Yeah, my misconception was that this had everything to do with the views onto the site and the impact for the community. But you've clarified.
Don't forget, Toro Canyon is traveled by a lot of people, Toro Canyon Road. And what was very striking to me at the site visit was the southeast corner, which is the most out of the slope
Mhm.
and the most at 23 feet or wherever it was at. That was glaring as you drive up Toro Canyon, and there's a lot of public that goes up and down that road.
Right,
So
but we addressed that with the screening, but I understand.
But
screenings.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't think there's a big controversy about whether or not you've successfully screened this from the public right away. You seem to be well on your way to doing that. It's just an issue of precedence.
That's what I get now. That's what I get now. The parity, the parity.
Doing your homework and knowing the difference between rural and urban ridgeline. And that up in the high mountains, it's rural. And it's really constraining for every designer that works on properties.
There's a lot of pretty modern stuff up on.
Yeah, but that stuff
Yeah,
came
but
before.
Yeah,
The Toro Canyon, when we go present a project there, we usually use that as an example of what we're not doing.
right.
So
Because
that precedent
that's what
doesn't help you.
brought,
That's what brought that foul.
that's what created the Toro Canyon plan was the amount of freewheeling tall structures.
But it's
prior.
doable. Like it's doable. And I think you have the right approach to the site. I think you have a design that can actually be well screened and still be beautiful from the inside out.
Yeah.
Just, you need to come back and you want to walk the razor's edge with us. You need to give us more information to look at this. And yeah, I highly recommend you create a 3-dimensional envelope and study that. So it's usually the most effective way to deal with something that's basically a geometry-based house. And it's a gorgeous house. There's no, this board would like to get you through this process. So let's get you back here for another review. See if we can get ourselves comfortable with, again, unless anybody here objects, I think what we're saying is we'll allow for some popping up outside of the envelope for the sake of maintaining the architectural character of the house.
But it's got to be really clearly delineated and understood.
And it can't be the whole roof.
No. it
Yeah,
can't be-
and the square footage, I get that now. It's a planimetric study as well as an elevational study.
So I think your toolkit is grading and plate heights and your ultimate creativity. So let's leave it at that. And
Okay.
again, I'm glad you're able to get this in front of us. At least you're moving. somewhere.
Thank you.
And I think that wraps us up on this. We'll see you again.
So I come back for
Further conception.
slash preliminary.
Yeah, all right, so I'm gonna move us on to our last item of the day.
Closer.
Gonna talk, we're gonna, I've lost my planning support here for a second, so. Let's see if we have, item number 12, the Agonias edition. We have Elizabeth Balakane available. You may be available in hearing me.
The name's Esteban Balakian.
Yeah, okay,
It's okay.
I say,
I prefer Elizabeth, actually.
oh, sorry,
We could go with that.
I don't even know who Elizabeth is. I'm, here, sorry, I'll try to bring it up a notch. Like, totally out of my mind. All right, I'm probably confident enough to finish this though, but let's see. All right, so this is preliminary and final. All right, so everybody wake up. It's the last item. We have a potential approval here before us. So we have a couple comments. Since we've seen this before, can you, if there's nothing that's changed dramatically, let's just go through the items that you have and see if you're ready for a preliminary and final approval.
Yeah, the only design comment and the only change therefore is the first item, the roof overhang. Was a request to pull it back from what it was, and so I did that by 4 feet. And if you pull up the project, I can show you exactly where that is.
Okay, we're waiting for our secretary to return. He's
Okay, got it.
running it.
Do you want to just continue with the other items?
Well, you have, so yeah, why don't you just tell us what you did with the, a couple of us are already looking at your plans. I just don't have them on the screen just yet. So,
Okay, sure. Yeah. So some good sheets to look at are A021, 022, and then A102 and A153. If you have those in front of you, those are the best sheets to see the roof.
I think the main comment was to pull the roof in on the main overhang, and we need to see a better difference between existing and proposed. And we wanted to see the adjacency to the other development in the neighborhood, and then landscaping, screen walls, and information about your lighting. So start with the easies. Do you have in here a specification for exterior lighting, and is it dark sky compliant?
I have an electrical plan.
Listen to me, I'm asking, you have a specification for your exterior lighting fixtures.
Oh, the actual
Are
fixtures
they dark-
themselves?
And are they dark sky compliant, and is it documented?
I don't have that specified.
Let's say that again.
No, I don't have the actual lighting fixtures specified.
So it says return with lighting details, so that's what that meant. What this board's concerned with is exterior lighting, it being downward pointing and dark sky compliant, which means that the source of the light can't be visible, which is part of the ordinance, so that's gonna, we're just gonna have to come back to that. So did you get the landscaping screen wall in?
Yes.
Okay, and where can we look at that?
So if you look on A021,
Mhm.
Do you know what page that is in the sheets?
I don't offhand, it's right there. You're right on it. Yeah. So scroll down a little bit on that sheet.
A1.01 is on page
021. Yeah, that's it. So it was referring to the plants in front of those screen walls.
Where is it on your site plan and labeled?
Is it on the site plan? Let's see. I don't think it's on the site plan.
Adding landscaping to the screen walls would need to show up on your site plan or your landscape plan. I know you've got it shown in your renderings, but those are just illustrations. We need it to be called out, and we need to be able to see the orientation and size and what's in there. Hey, man.
Okay, yeah, I could do that on the site plan as well.
Didn't you heard? So you don't have that in your site plan? And you don't have a
No.
landscape? Okay.
No, and there is no landscape plan for the project. There's no new landscaping
Yeah,
proposed.
so the place to put that would have been on the site plan. So the site plan needs to clearly show the difference between existing and proposed. And show adjacent development. So did we get that done?
Yeah, so I did a existing site plan and then also a new site plan
Okay,
to clearly show the difference. That's
So- where's the,
A101 is the existing and A102 is the proposed. You're
where's the adjacent?
you just
development?
passed it, just passed it.
So
Yeah,
where,
that one
where on
right
that
there.
site plan is the adjacent development? That means the neighbor's house.
That's not shown on the site plan. That's shown on, it's on the cover sheet. Where the site is traced.
So we have the existing site plan and proposed, folks. So everybody sees that, I hope. And then
zoom into the bottom left corner of that cover sheet.
there's a question about, there seems to be a note here about showing adjacent development. Does anybody remember asking for that? And okay, so I don't see that in the site.
Yeah, I thought the best place to show that was the actual aerial photo.
Best
And then
place to show
just
that is on the
drawing.
site plan. For, just for future reference, the best place to show.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Okay, so did we pull in the roof? Yes or no?
Yes, pulled in by 4 feet.
4 feet? That's it.
Yes.
Okay, good. So that covers all the items that were addressed last board meeting. Any questions? Any public comment? Anybody wish to speak about this? Anybody from the public? Okay, back to the board for comments. So we're here on the eve of a preliminary or final approval. We don't have lighting. We don't have, we have details.
Yes, there are details.
Which sheet for those?
Yeah, we
existing
have
on?
details.
Where do we find those, sir?
Give me a moment to look through it here.
I mean, these are somewhat unconventional drawings, so it's a little hard to.
They're more like 3D renderings.
Yeah, I know.
Very nice renderings indeed.
Nice renderings.
Details start on A560.
What sheet is that?
Well, look, I think based on what we're looking at here, this is just to the board here. I think there's potential for a preliminary approval of the design and then bring them back for a final consent with a carefully articulated shopping list of what needs to be there. Because I think this applicant's going to need some specific
Yeah.
direction on what to bring back.
Yes, we don't have the designs, the architectural details here.
But that's usually something we can see at consent. So let me, does anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah,
I have a question.
Let's identify what needs to.
Well, we need architectural details. We need to, we need lighting specifications. And we need to know what the landscaping screening on these walls is.
I think
consisting
there
of.
should be a full landscape plan and seems like the site plan is incomplete relative to just the existing and proposed renderings that I'm see. Was it page number 10?
Mhm.
And it looks like all the walls on the side of the house are being changed. Is that correct?
Well, let's.
Yes.
stick with that because this is what we're now looking at existing and proposed site plans, so that's new. So maybe you're seeing something we haven't seen before, or
Go up one sheet. All right, so on the top left is existing and the lower left is proposed, and it looks like all the walls and it's like a wall that looks like it's kind of behind the house. Assume that's all gonna require new planting. If any of the site work around this needs to be identified on a site plan and the planting needs to be identified as well as part of the proposal. And appropriate irrigation, everything.
I would be comfortable with just again, the preliminary approval, but returning on full board for final with a list. I think it's not, it's kind of a patchwork landscape job, you know?
Yeah, I
So
agree.
I don't think it needs to like get a
Just-
full review before we get, right?
Fair enough. I think it just needs to be identified what's
Yeah.
happening.
So does anybody want to make a motion to return the applicant to full board on final, but yeah, preliminary with a list of to-dos? I sure do. But I'm not gonna make it.
Yeah, so let's see what's necessary, what's missing here. Do we have a good site plan here? Let's see, on the first set, say page 12, is that a good site plan?
Yeah, I think it needs to show adjacent structures and it needs to call out more information about what the walls are, the heights of the walls. Which walls are gonna have landscaping in them, what kind of landscaping is gonna be in there, what kind of size, quantity and species of plants going in there, dimensions and so forth to define
Yeah.
where these walls are located that are new, and that's what I'm seeing in the site plan.
Are there maybe utilities or they're all there?
Well, this is an
It's a
remodel,
remodel, right?
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so.
but I assume all the materials for the driveway and hardscape should be called out as well.
Yeah, this, it's 13,
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So we're already here on preliminary and final, so we're gonna continue that?
Yeah, there's too many loose
All
ends.
right, all right, so. Look,
I mean, it could be preliminary, but I mean,
you gotta make the motion if you
I
want.
think the design is pretty much set, isn't it?
Well, that's kind of my point. He's moved that, look, the thing that's significant to me.
I think you should just continue it.
Move the roof back 4 feet. Now we just need to. Let him know he's got his project. He's got his bucket.
There might be a, this type of drawings require certain, discipline. I mean, it just seems like information is there, but it's all over the place. And the reason it's questionable is because who knows what is going to get built? I mean, these drawings are like an agreement, like a document, like a contract.
Right, well, we've got a pretty scattershot set of drawings here, so. Maybe the applicant will figure out that, but I gotta do with what we got here. So there's way too many drawings here that have no bearing on this board's decision-making process, by the way. You may want to consult with a licensed architect who has experience making submittals to the county of Santa Barbara and successfully navigating the design, specifically this discretionary design review board in front of this board. You have an approvable project and you have a very long shopping list of things that you need to have in your drawings that aren't here and they're not here in the right ways. Once those things are here, I believe you have an easy approval. So you could, if I can get one of my board members to make that list for you, move it forward, but it's a lot.
Okay, yes, well, I think we need a more complete site plan, including the location of adjacent structures. And first of all, the one the existing and another one, an existing with demolition.
So if I may, let me help you with this. Joe, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're gonna be really nice to this applicant apparently, so. We need an existing site plan. It shows all the existing site walls and shows any demolition of any existing elements on the site. It needs to be clearly articulated between existing and demo, so demolished. And then we need a site plan that shows all newly proposed elements that are dimensioned, and that includes top of wall, bottom of wall, and dimensionally laid out so they can be located on the site. The materials of all new site proposed elements need to be clearly called out. We need to have, we need to have a materials board to go with the final application, by the way. So that's another note that we need to know what each material on the site is. All the flat work, all the site walls, any wood decks, anything that's new needs to be labeled.
Landscape, also the landscape plan, if there is a
need a
landscape plan,
landscape plan.
so it should have a different landscape, whatever landscape is proposed.
So
Some-
any area of disturbance, that means any area where dirt's being moved around has to be re-landscaped. We need to know exact quantities and species and sizes of plantings going in there. It needs to be labeled on the site.
And,
And then we need to see the adjacent properties. So we need to see the the adjacent neighbors, the side and the rear, the outline of the first 10 feet of their property. Which is just an outline of the roof line.
Also drainage, I'm not sure there's some, this shows some, the site plan should show some drainage, direction of drainage.
So any new flat work should indicate appropriate drainage and symbology that tells us where the water's going. Okay, so that's pretty much for the site plan, okay? For the architecture, the elevations and floor plans seem to be adequate, but we need to have architectural details, so all the newly proposed elements of the project need to be, tied into the elevations and drawn. And there needs to be clear notation on the elevations about what is new, what's existing, and what's match existing. And we need a materials board to describe all the materials in the project, including lighting that will be used on the exterior, and it needs to be shown to comply with the ordinance around dark sky compliant lighting.
Put a spec sheet. Put a spec sheet into your drawing set.
Yeah, you can just copy and paste a cut sheet of the lighting, and you can go find the ordinance on the web and pop it in there. Anything else?
Yeah, then comes the details. The details is how the roof eaves and rake conditions.
And any railings.
And the railings, the steps, the window installations, so the windows and doors, the jambs and head and sill.
So if it's a new window, we need to see head jam and sill. If it's a new roof structure, we need to see the rake, eave, and peak. And if it's new
It's gonna
siding, we
be
need that,
in the
right?
building department anyway.
And
not to color the elevations because it makes it hard to read.
okay, and we need clean architectural black and white line drawn elevations with proper dimensions and notation. Advice to the applicant, that if the fire department hasn't looked at this, you should have them look at it, because you have wood decks and you need to make sure that all of the exterior flammable materials in the project comply with the high fire requirements of the zone and the state of California. And they're pretty restrictive, and you've got a lot of wood showing on the outside, so make sure that's shown or you're gonna have problems. Anything from our last remaining landscape architect?
Yeah, I think the comment that you have on here to add landscape screen walls, I know you were showing in the rendering where you put planting in front of the building, but then I think the comment is to capture the newly proposed walls. And this is the existing site plan. Maybe go to the next sheet where you can see the proposed site plan. Like that wall along the, what is that, the south side of the property? It looks like a really tall wall, and I just encourage you to get good study of all the planting in there, and it's gonna be an important space as part of this home. You got a stairwell going in.
So to the applicant, do we have new site walls going in?
It's like right along the property line. It looks like a really tall wall.
Along the southern property boundary?
It's also a stairwell.
Not along the boundary, it's right along the setback for the carport. But they are tall walls, that they're about 12 feet high.
Well, is that a new stairwell right there, right against the property line?
Let's, hold on. So watch the mouse on the screen, applicant. Is it any of this wall in here new proposed?
I don't see a mouse on the screen.
You need to turn your annotation features on.
Okay, yeah, now it's moving.
Okay, so are any of these walls new? Proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're in a hillside design district. You need to go and look at the hillside ordinances around what you're allowed to have for site retaining walls, and you're gonna have to draw a section through here and demonstrate that you're meeting the requirements of the zone. There's very specific rules about how tall these can be, and you need to have your drawings labeled to show us what the finished grades are, what the top of walls are, what the toe of the wall is, and we need to make sure it complies with the county zoning, the design guidelines for the sign.
Well, and I think the comment was to screen those walls as well.
Right, and if there's landscaping being provided to screen those, you need to show it in your site plan, species, quantity, and size. Okay? So,
Okay, the only comment last time for landscaping was in front of the large walls in the front.
now that's what happens when you don't show us what you need to show us the first time, and now we're seeing more, and now we're giving you more to do, so.
The roof plan should have the gutters and the downspouts, and that leads you to the stormwater management and drainage plans. It's a whole series of things that, it's part of the profession.
So
I'm sure I have to explain
is there a
it.
planner assigned to this project?
Yes, Alex Jimenez.
Okay, I recommend you go sit with your planner and see if your planner can help you with everything we've just given. Joe, that's a hell of a list. You have it?
Yeah, I think I have a pretty robust list from that. I'm happy to walk through it if you would like, or we go through it at the next meeting.
I think the bottom line is that we may make a motion, motions made for preliminary approval comes with a condition that proper documentation returned to this board, full board for final review. We're going to be somewhat careful in how we review that, given how this is going, so. So, anybody willing to make that motion? Okay, so I got a no from Valerie and no from John. If I wasn't chairing today, I'd probably do it, but I'm not gonna, I still want to just,
The same way. for the middle of the year,
I know.
But get the balance
Yeah.
to the level. we want.
It sounds like a risk at this point, because they're not vote it down, so why don't, maybe with that, if you're not feeling strong about this and you're not.
I think, it needs landscape.
Okay, so we're gonna continue and return you back to us, the same agenda we'll agendize you for preliminary and final. I think you should work very carefully to make sure your documents pull together, because I think the board would like to approve your project.
Maybe the planners, the planners can show a set of drawings. What is it? What is it?
We could reach out to Chris Gilliland, the chair of the board, and maybe he can help you.
No, I mean, like, because the planners know zoning things. They don't know architectural stuff. And they need to grab, okay, we approved these plans last month. This is what these plans look like, and you look through them and you see, the kind of documents that you need.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the feedback for today. Sorry you weren't able to achieve an approval, but we tried. Please return with the things we've given you to do, and I think you'll be on your way. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Close on this item, and that concludes our business today. Anything else? Oh,
We did
sorry,
not-
we need to approve the consent agenda. So do I have a motion for an approval of the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And there was no comments to go along with any of those approvals? Okay, all right. So now a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion. All those in favor? You're
Aye.
adjourned.
Wow.